Welcome to Harvard Law School. Let me move this down. Welcome to Harvard Law School. My name is John Manning. You are brand new Harvard Law School students, and I am a brand new dean. And so we'll be learning a lot together this year. We'll have a lot of fun, and it'll be especially exciting because this is our bicentennial year, which will give us lots of opportunities to think about our school's history, to look at today's most pressing issues, and to begin discussing what we want to accomplish together in our third century. It's going to be a great and meaningful year, and I'm so happy to be here to greet you today. Let me start by congratulating you on being admitted to Harvard Law School. This is an important and exciting time to be a lawyer. In a complex and often frightening world, good lawyers can make a huge difference. So I commend you for choosing to be part of this great profession. Today, I'm scheduled to speak for an hour. I'm sure that gives you pause. It gives me pause, too. We used to worry that we would bore you if we went on that long. Now, science has proven it. Data from online courses conclusively show that our attention span for lectures is, are you ready for this? 12 minutes. Now, I can't say all that I need to say in 12 minutes, but I can promise to keep it under an hour. And I'll look forward to using the balance of our time to shake some hands and say hello as we all head out to lunch. Okay, so here goes. My theme is, are you ready? Things I know today that I wish I had known on my first day at Harvard Law School. Now, there are actually a bunch of those things, but in the interests of time, I'll limit myself to 4 biggies. And here's the first and the most important. Don't worry about what you don't know. You're not here because of what you know already. You're here to learn what you don't know yet. And everyone is nervous about being here. So don't think that you're alone. When I was a 1L, exactly 35 years ago, sitting in Sanders Theater and listening to my dean tell me about HLS, I was scared. I mean, really scared. Not just because the dean started with a joke that compared law school to being eaten by a bear, but because a big new challenge like this is just plain unsettling. I had had an excellent undergraduate education, but I was super nervous. It was partly because I was the first in my family to graduate from college and the first to go to law school. It was partly because I didn't know many lawyers. And like many people, I went to law school largely because I didn't know what else to do with my life. And this seemed like a good default position. So my reason for being here was not exactly a model of high-minded clarity. Plus, everything seemed to be going a little wrong. Over the summer, I had tried to read the book that the law school had recommended to 1Ls. It was a brilliant book by a brilliant law professor named Carl Llewellyn. The book was called The Bramble Bush, and for me, it was aptly named. I got stuck 5 pages in. I couldn't begin to figure what the book was about, and I never finished it. But I assumed that everyone else had read it and understood it, and that I was simply delinquent for not having tried harder. And then, when I arrived, the 3L from the Board of Student Advisors who ran our small group orientation asked us the very simple question, how many of you think you want to be litigators? And I sat there thinking, I wonder what a litigator is. But I didn't ask. I was too embarrassed, and I assumed that everyone else just knew. And then, on the first day of my criminal law class, I had read the wrong assignment. And so I literally spent my first class at Harvard Law School praying that I wouldn't be called on. There were lots of other moments like this my first year, but I think you get the point. My whole first semester, I sat there imagining that everyone around me got it and that I didn't. They had read just the right books. They seemed to know just what to say in class. They knew just when to start outlining for finals. I worried that everyone around me seemed to grasp what was going on in a way that I didn't. So here's my advice. My mom used to say to me, don't compare your insides to other people's outsides. No matter how everyone else looks, everyone is nervous. This is all new. Learning to be a lawyer is learning a new way of thinking about the world. By the way, a new way of thinking about the world that won't always be popular with your friends. And let me say this. The folks who look most confident on the outside on day one may simply not know what it is that they don't know. And my bottom line is that you'll all learn what you need to know, and you'll all do very, very well in your careers. So don't worry too much. There are lots and lots of good ways to do this thing called law school. And your job is to find the one that's right for you. So please, dive right in. Ask questions. Discuss things with your classmates. Don't be shy. Seek out the right advisors and the right mentors. Make it a point to connect with at least one faculty member before the semester is out. In fact, find a couple of friends and ask a professor to take you out to lunch. We are very happy to pick up the tab. And please, 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 don't feel as I did, that you need to pretend to know something that you don't know. If you don't know what a litigator is, then ask. I bet somebody will come up to you after and say, wow, I'm glad you asked that question. I didn't know either, but I was afraid to raise my hand and ask. Okay, that's point one. Here's the second thing I wish I had known, but I didn't. Ready? Law school isn't just about learning stuff, it's about learning how to think. Okay, I spent most of my first semester quietly believing that my job as a law student was to learn a set of legal rules. What are the mental elements for first-degree murder? What are the elements of promissory estoppel? What's the standard for asserting personal jurisdiction over an out-of-state defendant? Things like that. Now look, if you want to be a lawyer, you are going to have to learn some rules. But what I didn't fully get was that my main job was not to learn rules. but instead to learn how to think like a lawyer. To break apart a problem into its essential pieces, to see what's really at stake, to identify a value judgment that lies behind a rule, or to think about who has the proper authority to announce a rule that's going to determine our rights and our responsibilities. In other words, I was so focused on learning the rules, the precedents, the statutes, the administrative regulations, that I didn't stop to ask whether they were sound or unsound, wise or foolish, just or unjust, legitimate or illegitimate. I didn't get that that was part of my job as a law student and part of my responsibility as a lawyer. Now, why do I say that? For one thing, it's almost impossible to have a deep understanding of law if you don't think about it critically. Now, why is that? The law is not mechanical. As Justice Felix Frankfurter, Harvard Law School class of 1906, once wrote, very few legal rules approach the clarity of, quote, mathematical symbols. And when the law is unclear, as it often is, we lawyers have to figure out how it should apply to a particular situation. A law that says no vehicles in the park clearly covers cars and delivery trucks, right? But what about a bicycle? What about a police car? What about an ambulance? What about a garbage truck, right? Are those things covered by that law? It's very easy to stumble from case to case, trying to intuit what a law ought to mean, what a rule ought to mean, or how one case relates to the next. But in the hard cases, in the ones that we care most about here, there is no clear right answer. And what you have to think about is, what value should guide the judge's decision? Is it equity, equality, efficiency, predictability, transparency, democracy, human dignity, something else? How do we decide? And how do we weigh those values against each other when they conflict, as they very often do? As I said, it's very easy to lose sight of all this in the press of business before you. But you mustn't allow yourself to do so. For one thing, if you evaluate a case, if you make a judgment about whether you think it's right or wrong and why, you will learn the rule better and you will see better how it relates to the scheme of law, the broader scheme of law that you're trying to learn. But more importantly, as lawyers, we are custodians of the rule of law. I don't mean this just because lots of our graduates here and around the world go on to become heads of state, judges and justices, cabinet members, legislators, leaders in the public interest bar, leaders in the private bar, and more. I mean it because all lawyers, whether they're in high public office or doing the everyday work of representing clients, are responsible for the integrity of the legal system. Law is powerful. It has great capacity for good and for ill. And if we're doing our job right, we lawyers must always be prepared to question, criticize, and look behind decisions made in the name of the law. That is one of the high callings of our great profession. That's point 2. Here is the third thing I wish I'd realized. Lawyers disagree with one another. It's part of our job. In fact, the adversarial system of justice is set up precisely so that lawyers have to deal with the best arguments against them all the time, at least if the system is working at its best. What I didn't get when I was at law school was that part of what we're supposed to learn in law school is how to disagree with one another. Okay, so what does that mean? Very simple. It means take opposing arguments seriously. You don't have to agree with those arguments or even to like them, but you have to hear them so that you can understand how to answer them. In over 3 decades as a lawyer, I have seen that the best lawyers, the most effective lawyers, are the ones who listen generously and who take the other side seriously. I have read and I have written a lot of briefs. I was a law clerk for 2 appellate judges. I was an appellate lawyer for years. I've argued a bunch of cases, and I've been watching lawyers and judges closely throughout my whole career. And one thing I know for sure, and that is, if you don't take the other side seriously, if you dismiss it, if you treat it as silly, if you deem it unworthy of your consideration, you will not hear the strength in the other side's arguments. And you will not need to know what points you most need to answer in order to persuade someone who may or may not start from the same assumptions that you do. I will tell you that the most productive moments in my career as a practicing lawyer were those in which I thought that my client was going to lose the case, when I worried that my opponent had us dead to rights. In those moments, as unpleasant as they were, I figured out what I needed to concede in order to preserve my credibility with the courts, and what I needed to say to answer an argument that on first blush seemed unanswerable. And lawyers must learn something else about disagreement. That we can and must frame our disagreements with mutual respect. At Harvard Law School, we take this obligation very seriously. No school has a greater diversity of people, thought, approach, perspectives, lived experiences, political views, ambitions, and interests as this one does. So we live with, eat with, and learn with people who may not see eye to eye with us on many important things. That is our community. It's who we are. It's how we learn. It's part of what makes Harvard Law School great. And so it is our job here at Harvard Law School to debate vigorously and to have the courage of our convictions. But we also know that we must leaven our courage with empathy, and we must never, ever denigrate the humanity of others. Disrespect has never won a case or closed a deal. Following the path of generosity and mutual respect will make us better, more effective lawyers. It is also good for our souls. Okay, one final point, and then I'll let you go. Now, this sounds simple, may even sound a little bit trite, but I want you to know that there are many, many ways to be happy in this profession. And your job, starting now, is to find the path that best suits you. It's very easy to go through one's career on autopilot, to think that you know exactly what you want to do or to follow the path of least resistance. But don't assume today that you know what job will be most fulfilling to you in 5 years. And don't assume in 5 years that you know what job will be most fulfilling to you in 10 or 20 years. You will change, the profession will change, many, many things will change. What I have seen in my 35 years in the business is that the happiest lawyers are often the ones who have been most open to possibilities they never thought possible. Harvard Law School will offer you a lot of things to sample. More than any other law school, hundreds of courses, 83 student organizations, 31 clinics, 17 journals, 11 student practice organizations. Take advantage of it. Try different things. Experiment. Take a course that you never thought you'd like. Take a clinic you never thought you'd take. Go for that summer job or that internship in a city you never thought you'd live in. Shoot for that government job or that public interest fellowship. Or try that law firm that isn't the bluest of blue chip firms, but that seems like it just might be the right fit for you. The training and the credentials that you'll get here at Harvard Law School will give you the luxury to take risks, to be bolder about your choices, to try things that you might not otherwise try. When I got here in 1982, I knew to a certainty that I wanted to be a corporate lawyer in my hometown of Los Angeles, doing deals, greasing the wheels of commerce, making the U.S. economy hum. I never did that. Somewhere along the way, I realized that what I really cared about was the rule of law, the separation of powers, the checks and balances, the things that, in Justice Kagan's words, quote, secure for each of us what the Constitution calls the blessings of liberty. I would never have guessed that the rule of law would be the love of my professional life, or that I would someday be a law professor or a dean. Indeed, I would have bet heavily against all of that. But I kept an open mind, and I tried different things, lots of different things. And I have found a life here with all of you that has been more fulfilling than anything I could have dared imagine 35 years ago, sitting where you're sitting today. You will learn, if you have not already, that all advice is autobiographical. And so I urge you again to be open-minded and to try many things. In this profession, there are countless ways to find deep fulfillment. Harvard Law School produces brilliant government lawyers, public interest lawyers, law firm partners, general counsels, community organizers, captains of finance, senators, judges, justices, governors, even presidents. Harvard Law School will give you the ways and the means to identify and pursue your wildest dreams. I urge you to do just that. You are brand new Harvard Law students. I am a brand new Harvard Law School dean. We will always have that special bond. We will try new things. We will make mistakes. We will learn a lot together. and we'll have fun along the way. I am so happy to be here today. I remember the start of this journey vividly, as if it were yesterday. I am so proud to be here at the start of your journey. I know that you are on the road to something great, and I look forward to watching with pride as you become the next generation of Harvard lawyers. Congratulations and Godspeed. Thank you.